Hello everyone, welcome to Gelvin Valley, created by Wild Wes, continuing our planting season here in a field. Yes, we fixed this corner finally once and for all. We just apparently don't have skilled enough combine drivers to make this corner. But there is something irresistibly attractive about the fence to our hired help over there. Don't know what it is, but hopefully we have fixed it. In between last episode and this one, I did a little bit of modding in the map. Actually, let me see if I'm popping any. I got some warnings. Actually, there's a number of warnings in here to deal with at some point if I want to fix them. Not everything in the log has to be dealt with, but I do like traveling with as clean a log as I can. I think just less problems overall. Well, we are down to one more field, I believe. We have field number 2, and then we're going to shift gears and be working on ripping up some new property and getting it all set up for arable farming. But the modding that I did in between the last episode and this one was to install the buy triggers, and as it turns out, I was hoping that the buy trigger would be kind of a, and maybe there'd be a way to modify it further to get it to do this, but you know how when you go to the main farm and you pull a commodity out of storage, how it gives you a choice as to which that you're gonna load up? Well, I think this particular trigger, you can only specify one particular commodity to come out. So if you want the ability to purchase multiple commodities, you have to set up multiple triggers. So, you know, one of, I think I have 4 of them are just, I set up 5 of them. I don't know which ones I'm ultimately going to need, so I could go in and mod it further. I set up 5 of them, 4 for the main grains. I think I got wheat, corn, barley, well, maybe it's just those 3. Okay, yeah, so just 3 of them as I recall. Then I set up one for potatoes and another for total mixed ration. And you know, if someone, I know that in Farm Sim 17 we had the ability to purchase some of these items. You could purchase them in these wooden pallet crates or whatever they were, pallet boxes. But I don't recall, and I think that was built into the game itself, I don't recall seeing the ability to do that here in Farm Sim 15, not even with a mod. You know, the only mod for buying ingredients or that I remember seeing is the one I mentioned for buying hay bales kind of in a previous episode, straw or grass. You know, I know in game you can purchase a pallet of tree saplings, you know, you got that kind of thing. What is going on here? Somehow I think my GPS got off. Good grief. Yeah, when I first came in, something went off here. Just trying to finish this little... I think I clicked the wrong key combination and ended up mixing up what I had previously set up. The game does pretty well saving it from one save game to another, but not when the nut behind the wheel goofs it up kind of at the beginning. That ain't gonna work, so yeah, see, it's just slightly off, so maybe that's the correct angle there. Make sure I'm down. But anyway, to finish the thought, if anybody's aware of a mod that allows for purchase of raw product materials in Farm Sim 15, I would really, really enjoy knowing. This trigger that I can buy things at, it'll work just fine. But I gotta say, it's probably going to be a little unrealistic to see potatoes streaming out of a spout. That isn't how you would purchase potatoes. You probably would get them in some kind of pallet box. But anyway, at least now I can procure other commodities, that I may need as I get into making feed. And what is up with... There is a collision here. Can you see it on here? Let me just go... What is that? Oh, you know what? I bet it's another fence. I bet there's some barbed wire. Yeah, see, I keep running into this little spot right here. That's kind of deceiving. I'm going to have to look for that in the map editor and get it out of there, because there's been a number of times I've collided with that silly thing. And the gate here is already plenty narrow as it is. Don't need to make it even worse. Anyway, the things we complain about. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this particular field in 7 minutes. So I'm probably going to end up leasing this dumb thing for another hour, so I'll lose some of my investment in it. But I definitely want to turn it back. Of course, I could do better if I drove straight. I think I definitely want to turn it back, because before I can plant the rest of the fields, I need to do some other work. So, and I also don't want to forget to clear up by those sheep, so that I have more grass available. Yeah, there'd even be grass along here. I think it is. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell when that's kind of steep and bumpy. Being able to get the grass off of there. But we'll be done here shortly. On to something else. I did make one modification to the script that runs this buy trigger, whatever. You're allowed to put in there kind of what the price is, and in terms that you can buy it. Presumably the default that was in there was $1.50 per liter. And the small tweak I made was to turn this into a price multiplier, not the price itself. So in order to get a fluctuating price, what I did instead was had the code look up the actual price per liter for the particular commodity being purchased. So whatever it's fluctuating to at the moment, it'll grab that price and then it'll multiply it by the multiplier, in calculating what the player owes. I just kind of liked that result better than having a specified constant price, because everything around it could fluctuate. Oh, what's that? I got a little tuft. Looks like a little tuft of canola over there, so maybe next time I come through here, the combine will harvest it. Even though it's been through several harvest cycles. Maybe we just say that was seed drop a long time ago and it's volunteered coming back. Now for the next round. And about when we get this round done, our lease is going to be up. It'll charge us for another blinking hour. But it is what it is. Okay, last episode I spent some time talking about another game, frankly, that I just remembered over time. Really there's very little that would entice me away from, farming simulator. I've enjoyed Farm Sim so much. One of those few things in terms of another game genre, and I realize there's other YouTube channels out there where they do all sorts of games. Hey, more power to them. What can I say? I'm just a stick in the mud. I enjoy this, and I'm sticking to it. But one that could, depending on the circumstances, or one that I've enjoyed in the past, is definitely things having to do with the railroad. Last time, we visited about Transport Tycoon and kind of the evolution of that particular game. Started a long time ago, of course. The amazing thing is it's still being developed on to the current day, at least the open source version of it. It's just amazing what a community can do when they put their mind to it and work together on creating something new out of something old. But then there's another whole group of games, if you will, that kind of ran in parallel, and in many ways was kind of the inspiration for Transport Tycoon at some level. I think I remember reading that. And that was the Railroad Tycoon franchise. I think my notes are correct here. I think the first version of that was created by Sid Meier. I think he's practically a household name in the gaming industry. Back in 1990. I mean, that's just a long time ago. You look at this now, and as I record this, we're in 2025. I mean, 35 years ago for that game, and the genre is very much alive and well. And, oops. Oh, that's right. You know what? Every time I do this, I can't see. Yeah, if I tip this screen up, I think that there's something I probably, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm not seeing it. There's, there, at least now we can see our trigger here. Now, what direction do I set this up? You know what? That's probably not too bad. I'll try to get this going about, is that about the right? I wonder if it needs to be more about like that angle. Let's just try that. This go around. That looks roughly parallel or perpendicular to the hill, rather. Let's come down here to sneak and get the other part started right. Who knows if we're gonna have to refill this thing. I'm gonna have to be careful if I do need to refill it that I don't fill it so full of seed that I lose my money. But Railroad Tycoon, I don't even remember it coming out. I mean, it was before my time. I remember hearing about it later, as I started getting interested in games and those kinds of things. And it was based in DOS, and I know we talked about that in the previous episode. DOS was in replace. There goes my police. That was an operating system, kind of old school, if you will, what we had before Windows. And even for a while, I think Windows was run off of DOS, using DOS as a base. I don't think it's that way anymore. I could be wrong on that. I thought I'd heard that before. These short runs probably going to end up taking longer than it otherwise would, but oh well, we got a whole hour. But Railroad Tycoon was focused only on railroads, and it had a historical function. And a Transport Tycoon had this too. Over time, and you didn't even have to invest in the technology. I know some games will force you to pay to invest in technology so you can get better equipment and that kind of thing. That isn't how Railroad Tycoon worked. It's just over time, better equipment became available, just like, it happens in real life. And so you could update your roster of locomotives and that kind of thing. But the thing that to me set apart Railroad Tycoon from any others, and still to this day hasn't been adequately replaced, in my opinion, is that it had a fully functioning stock market in it. You know, where, at least in later versions, but you could play, you know, there was a time era in American, and I think even world history, the era of the robber barons, or, you know, there's things we can learn in history of people who manipulated the stock market. Some boom and bust, some people became fabulously wealthy, some people lost it all, you know, but just these big tycoons, you know, that were, became famous by some of their shenanigans, frankly, you know, that us little people aren't able to do, to where they floated these companies, bought and sold them like candy practically. And anyway, you could do that in this game. And, you know, Railroad Tycoon was the first kind of in the franchise. Railroad Tycoon Deluxe was the second one. That came in 1993. And then those both, I believe, were done by Sid Meier. And then in 1998, Railroad Tycoon 2 came to be. And Railroad Tycoon and Railroad Tycoon Deluxe, the early versions, were kind of top-down based. You know, you looked, and it was not the best graphics. It was all looked down, straight from up on top, and you could see your rail lines, and you could see the towns. You could even see little trains going putt-putt on them, even little smoke coming out of the stacks, but it was just basically two-dimensional, very, very rudimentary. In Railroad Tycoon 2, you now had the isometric presentation where it wasn't full three-dimensional, but it wasn't two-dimensional either. It was kind of off to the side, and they, how do I say this? The edges were rounded. You know, in Transport Tycoon, it had very sharp edges, you know, as you created raised and lower terrain or whatever. Well, in Railroad Tycoon 2, it was just smoothed somehow, and isometric, I think that's what they call, maybe isometric is a term. Maybe it was like hexagonal shape that they had in the map for Railroad Tycoon 2, you know, and you adjusted 6 sides of a cell, and that was a little smoother than maybe 4 sides. I don't even know what I'm saying. It was just smoother and it looked much nicer. And then Railroad Tycoon 3 was a successor to Railroad Tycoon 2. Oh yeah, Railroad Tycoon 2 and 3 were created by, it was called Gathering of the Developers, and I forget the guy's name who did the primary programming behind it. I was actually able to contact him one time and kind of had a little bit of correspondence with him. So when I was messing about with Railroad Tycoon 2, and I was trying to understand the internals more, so I asked if he still had the programming or whatever, and he told me he didn't. Now, I don't know, maybe he's telling the truth. There's just a part of me that doesn't think that any programmer is ever going to just throw away their hard work. You know, of course, once it's rendered into an executable, you know, you're not able to see all that inside, but surely somewhere in some dark room, someone has all the actual programming files that makes it go, but whatever. You know, he certainly didn't need to send them to me anyhow. Yeah, so you see this other grimple on the screen. I have to have it at a certain setting because every time I show all those objects like we were seeing, oops, it removes my ability to see the GPS. Come on, climb up the hill. I think this is about right. I've been wanting to have it go across the hill, and this most of the time I end up going down the hill part of the time or up it. This one here is pretty fair for going across it. I'm pleased with that. And here we go, we got to the end of it. Look at that. Back down we go. But the Railroad Tycoon 2 ended up, I think, being my favorite out of the whole franchise. We tried Railroad Tycoon 3, and I think I have heard by many people that apparently it was maybe one of the best. But I know Railroad Tycoon 2 still has a lot of people that are still playing it and are interested in it, and many who feel just like I do that it's their favorite of the series. And I don't know why it is. It just, there's a whole lot of things that come together to make a good game. It's kind of like how in Farm Sim here we'll each have, maybe a particular version is our favorite, and maybe it's kind of hard to explain why, or we have our reasons and other people have theirs, and it might be as simple as, which one was the first, which seems to make the most lasting imprint on us, as to which one was the first version that we played. And truthfully, I didn't spend a lot of time in the earliest versions, because by the time I discovered Railroad Tycoon, I kind of think Railroad Tycoon 2, I did a little in Railroad Tycoon Deluxe, but then shortly thereafter, Railroad Tycoon 2 became available, and I did that for a while, and then, there was like a 10-year period, and I went back to it, and you can still find places on the internet where these games are kept alive by fans, and modifications even to them, where someone painstakingly with a hex editor looked into the executable file and was able to find stuff that was readable, that if a person wished, they could change. But again, probably my favorite part about it was the stock market module and the ability to start multiple companies and to do things you would never do in real life. I work in the financial world, and I know there's corrupt people in every world too, but I'm licensed in my profession of what I do, and so I'm I'm held to a higher standard whether I like it or not. So to be truthful in my dealings, ethical, and all those kinds of things. Not that it takes a license to tell me to do those things. I'm just saying, there's a lot at stake for my occupation if I don't. So to have a game where you can blow off some steam and do a few things you would never do in real life is just kind of fun. And really, this is what a lot of those characters did back in the day before, they had a Securities and Exchange Commission, before they had a lot of laws surrounding how the stock markets worked and some of those things, disclosures or whatever. So some people figured out how to manipulate, and they took advantage of it. And I'm glad I don't have to answer for those things. But yeah, one of the things you can do here is, and some of it's based on quirks of the game. It's, whoever owned the track, I remember in Railroad Tycoon 2, whoever owned the track would get the revenue from whatever train passed over it. When there was a sale, whatever route the train took getting to the sell point. So owning track was a big deal. Well, in real life, that isn't how things go down, but that's how it worked in the game. So I always had a home company, if you will, where that owned all the track. But that didn't mean that I couldn't use other companies to do a lot of legwork in helping construct where the track went. So I remember sometimes starting shell companies, and then using the money in them to move mountains, literally, to have a flat, straight area to haul my goods. And then I would go to the other company, where I was also president, and lay my track right over the top of where my shell company had just spent boatloads of money flattening ground. And so I understand, like I say, some of it took place back in the day, by some unscrupulous people who would do just those kinds of things. Now, in the game, you do get penalized, your reputation, for doing such things, but it always comes back. It always comes back at some point. There's kind of like a moratorium. You're not allowed to start another company for a couple of years. Your reputation hits the toilet. Bondholders don't trust you, but things always come back, and the memory in the computer is short, so you can go have more investors take it in the shorts again. I don't know, that was pretty funny to me and amusing, to play the game that way. And speaking of shorts, you could also, I guess I've never looked at them, maybe there are stock market simulators out there. I'm sure there are. I mean, I can't say that appeals to me very much. The idea, unless it would be in the context of something like I'm describing, for railroads. But you could also short other people's companies or even your own. In the game, the person was an entity, so you had your personal money with which to buy stock or the stock of other companies. And then you had your company that had its own money and also, if I recall correctly, had the ability to buy other companies. Maybe did it have the ability to do that? I kind of think it did. And then once you had over 50%, of course, you gained control. But you could short stock. You could short it on the market. And of course, every action you take has an impact. When you short the market, immediately the price falls. When you are buying stock, of course, the price rises, especially because it forces you to do it in large enough blocks that would move the market. And that's exactly right. I mean, there was some semblance of realism, but let me tell you, I mean, if you were able to go to Coca-Cola or pick any big company and do a stock deal where you were buying or selling 10% of its stock, you can rest assured it's going to have a huge market impact on everybody else who owns it or is looking to buy it. Hey, now I think we are done. Yeah? Let's just look at our map here. See where we're at. Growing. Okay, so we're growing everywhere, the normal fields, except 21, 23, 12, and, 47. So those are the new ones we have to get up to speed. Oh, look at that, 54 liters. That came out just perfect. Just perfect. Couldn't ask for a better turnout here. So let me haul this over here. And I got one other tractor. Oh, hold on. Let me go here. Let me see if I can dump some more in there. Nope, he isn't taking any more. Nor do I see any growing in these trees. Maybe by the time he's sold them, there'll be other apples ready to harvest. We'll see. All right, we'll haul our trailer down. Take it also back to the barnyard, and I'm going to be turning the tractor in. I think I want to start a fresh lease Although, you know what? You know what? I guess I'm not going to do that. I still have, what is it, 48 minutes? I think I'll keep that, and then well, of course, we'll see. We will see. Maybe I'll be close by in field number 21 or 23, where it won't be too far of a drive. Maybe that's what I'll do. So I'll get some use out of it. Oh, I see. That was something. Okay, so let me just send back this return vehicle, and let me now, so I had to go back to here to the shop. There's a particular plow. Let's see, this, I need 300. All right, how big is this one? 12 and a half. That's 5. Yeah, that's a big one right there. Here it is. Here's a one that I typically use. I don't remember how wide it is, but it's just right, I think, for this little, not really little tractor, but I think for what I'm going to be doing. All right, so let me rent this. 4 hours? I don't know if I have 4 hours of work to do, but it's only $500. Rent. There we go. All right. Everybody heard the alarm go off, so I think I will be terminating this episode here. I have 43 minutes to continue using this particular tractor, so I think I'll use it as much as I can until this lease is up, and I'm gonna start tearing out fields and start getting the other fields worked into our arable program. So thank you so much for coming along. Planting season is continuing and almost done for our regular fields, and I will look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. Take care and have a wonderful day.